Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now today I want to talk about my love for The Walking Dead, in particular actually how they've managed to preserve both the experience of reading the comic and of watching the TV show. The writers, Robert Kirkman, producers and various other people involved with, I suppose, looking after how the story unfolds in both the TV show and the comic book series, have so far done an excellent job of making it so that it's really quite hard to properly spoil one experience or the other, and I really appreciate that. Now for me, The Walking Dead and my love of The Walking Dead started probably in a very similar way to how it started for many other people, and that is having prepped myself, I suppose, by already having read Max Brooks' The Zombie Survival Guide. I remember when this book came out, I was fascinated by the concept, and I would take this book with me almost everywhere for a few weeks, just sort of dipping in and out and generally just enjoying the care and the attention to detail he had put into really thinking through that question. And the question was really what we used to say all the time at the pub or in school or at uni, and that is, how would you survive a zombie apocalypse? What would you do? Where would you go? Would you go to the football ground? Would you go to the supermarket? Would you stay at home and chop the staircase down so you were safe upstairs for a little while? And he sort of took that thought process and turned it into a survival guide, a brilliantly written piece of, I don't know, fact fiction. Because actually the tips he gives are quite good in various survival situations. Anyway, The Walking Dead kind of runs with that even further and actually turns it into a drama. And actually, as it says on the back of every volume of The Walking Dead, so far I've read volume 1 to 11 of the comics, and I've watched series 1, 2, 3 and 4 of the TV show. But as it says on the back of every volume, how many hours are in the day when you don't spend half of them watching television? When is the last time any of us really worked to get something that we wanted? How long has it been since any of us really needed something that we wanted? The world we knew is gone. The world of commerce and frivolous necessity has been replaced by a world of survival and responsibility. An epidemic of apocalyptic proportions has swept the globe, causing the dead to rise and feed on the living. In a matter of months, society has crumbled. No government, no grocery stores, no mail delivery, no cable TV. Ironically, for the TV show at least. In a world ruled by the dead, we are forced to finally start living, it says, or they say on the back of every one. And that's really what the comics and the TV show are about. It's about humanity, actually, and using the zombie apocalypse as a lens with which to focus and, to a certain extent, exaggerate the problems and the virtues of humanity. And but also it does it in this very logical way. You do think, well, actually, yeah, that makes sense. That's how I would try and survive in a zombie apocalypse. Now, today I want to talk about one thing. I'm going to spoil one thing, and that is really the reason why both the TV series and the comic books are distinct and why they're able to be enjoyed separately and together at the same time. Now, the reason why this came up though is because a friend of mine lives in Australia and they've just got season 5. The first episode aired there, as it did in the US, and it kind of feels like there's at least two tier fan sort of ranking for The Walking Dead. If you're sort of from America, from Australia, or if you can afford certain TV series services, then you get to watch season 5 as soon as it comes out, or if you download it using a torrent or something. But in Britain, on terrestrial TV, at least, or on digital terrestrial TV, we have to wait a year before it's released. So I won't get to watch season 5 until almost a year from now, maybe 10 months from now, which is a real pain. But anyway, he said to me, well, surely you already know what's going to happen in season 5. If you've read the comic books and you intend to keep on reading the volumes up to volume 21, 22, then you're good, aren't you? You don't need to know what's happening. You can just wait a year. But that's the thing. It's not like that, and this can all be illustrated in this one moment. And it's a moment from actually volume 1 of the comics and from season 2 of The Walking Dead. So I'm not spoiling too much for those of you who have already seen some of this stuff. But if you don't want to hear spoilers, feel free to turn this video off and go away and then come back. But anyway, the spoiler is essentially when and how Shane dies. In the comics, he dies very, very quickly. By the end of volume 1, in the first sort of 6 or 7 issues, he's killed because he goes nuts. He can't handle that Rick's back. He thought he was going to build a life for him and Carl and Laurie. He had these fantasies about being this better father, and he just loses it. Before they even leave the camp outside Atlanta, he's dead. He's shot through the neck, actually, by Carl. On the TV show, Shane lasts all the way through to the end of season 2, and he's actually shot by Carl, but as a reanimated corpse. Rick actually stabs him to death, and then Carl has to shoot Shane's zombie out in the field, causing a herd to come to the farm. But anyway, the point is that moment has huge implications for the direction in which the TV series go. So the TV series, and the comic series go, the different media. In the comic, because Shane dies so quickly, he doesn't bother Dale as much as he does in, say, season 2 of The Walking Dead. He's not as twisted over time. He doesn't slowly descend into madness. He just snaps in the comic. And this means, actually, in the comic, Dale is a happier man for the most part. He eventually becomes a little bit annoyed by Rick, the coincidences essentially of Rick's leadership often leading them into harm's way. But that has implications for other characters. So, for example, Dale lasts much longer in the comics than he does in the TV show. In the TV show, he dies in season 2, arguably because of this tension that's building up, because of Shane's presence. If Shane wasn't there, the group wouldn't be fragmenting quite so much. And also Shane wouldn't have been pushing the old mans quite so much, and essentially actually taking the piss of Dale's apparent inability to do anything in the face of Shane's might and strength and decisiveness. But again, because of the different directions that Dale goes in, for example, in the comic, actually Dale really goes through what in the TV show Herschel goes through. So Dale has his leg cut off and ends up getting a wooden stump for that leg. In the TV show, it's Herschel that does that. Herschel has his leg cut off in the prison and eventually has a wooden leg after using a crutch for a while. These different things happen to slightly different characters, arguably all because of when and how Shane died. And that is the way in which the integrity of those two different strands of the story, those two different medias, those two different ways of telling the story is maintained. It's because these decisions essentially create new universes. It's almost like the multiverse theory. For every decision there's a new universe, and in the Walking Dead world that's certainly true. And that's why I love it. I love, not only is it an opportunity to do that mental exercise, to go through the process of thinking, how would I survive in a zombie apocalypse? But also as well, the writers and the producers really care about the experience that you're having. So they care about whether or not you can spoil this too much for yourself. And of course there are some things that I know will be coming in the TV series, but I don't know how or when or to whom, because already the roster of the living and the dead is so different in the comics compared to the TV show. Who's been in love with who slept with who's been angry with who, all completely different. And arguably lots of this stuff stems from, as I say, that moment in the comics where Shane dies just outside Atlanta, and in the TV series where his death is not for much later. For example, in the TV series, Shane directly results in the death of Otis. In the comic, Shane's already dead and Otis dies in a slightly different way. Well, in a very different way. No, slightly different way. But anyway, the point is, that's the most beautiful thing about The Walking Dead, for me at least. It's that the way that they're using the characters and their longevity and their effect on each other, and how much exposure they get to each other to create subtly different worlds, so you can enjoy one without ruining the other. Now also, the other biggie that many people find surprising, my wife for example finds incredibly surprising, is that in the comics Daryl and Merle aren't there. They're just not there, and they may well turn up eventually, but they're certainly not there yet. And that's amazing for so many people, because Daryl is such an integral part of the TV show. There are memes out there, if Daryl dies, we riot. And I love Daryl. I've got a lovely Funko Pop of him there, and it's undeniable that he's such a badass. The crossbow, the poncho, his character arc from being a redneck hillbilly, antisocial, no opinion, racist maniac, through to being actually one of the most lovable and important characters in the show for everyone really who meets him, has been a joy to watch. But it's just not in the comic. And again, these little decisions keep both experiences fresh. They maintain the integrity of both experiences, and it means that you can be a fan of both, and you can read and consume as much as both as you want without spoiling the other for yourself. So I love it. I love The Walking Dead. I love what they're doing with it. I love how they're doing it and how they're adapting. They're not going off in wild tangents. They're still using the same characters. For example, the appearance of the governor and how he appears and what he does to who is similar, but also completely different. One more little spoiler, and that is Rick in the comics loses a hand. The governor actually cuts off one of his hands. In the TV show, that hasn't happened. Arguably because it costs too much to constantly CG Rick's hand away in the TV show. But it's just another instance of the subtle ways that they maintain the difference. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this little sort of, I suppose, this thought about The Walking Dead. And if you have any similar thoughts or just want to have a chat, please do feel free to comment below. I look forward to reading your thoughts. And I also look forward to finally getting season 5 of Walking Dead, because it's just not here yet. Such a shame. Anyway, I can keep on reading the comics, and again, that's the beauty of it. As ever, until next time guys, do take care. Bye bye.